that did strike us, when that happened. We actually discussed, should we like change the sleeve? There wasn't really a great deal of development. I think from the original drawing, which would have been, if you want to call it the black and white napkin drawing of the front cover, it didn't really change a great deal because it's not a photograph. It's a cartoon or whatever you want to call it. It's a painting. I do remember that the very first draft of it had a white framing. And we all went, that looks really crap. And I do remember one of us getting a Sharpie and just colouring it in and going, it needs to be black. And we went with the black, and everybody agreed that black was the way to go. So that part of it was easy, really. It was Andy Airfix. It was our first time working with Andy because we'd use hypnosis on High and Dry, which was an itch we had to scratch because being Zeppelin, UFO, Pink Floyd fans, etc. It's like, we've got to use those guys. And we did, and, done. And then Andy Airfix was suggested, and he came in really enthusiastic. And we were like, okay, this guy is so enthusiastic. I don't want to step on his toes here. Let him go with something. What I do remember being funny was the back, because when the album first came out, we didn't have a running order. So the album cover, on at least the first few pressings, the song titles were all over the place in the wrong orders. And the photographs, we were scrambling for pictures. We did a photo session for High and Dry, where we're all shoulders up, topless. But for Pyromania, we wanted to use live shots, and everybody had got to pick their own individual shot. And by then, Pete had left the band. So Phil's shot is him from when he was in Girl. And Sab's was a fan shot that he really loved. So we asked whoever took it permission to use it. And in the background of one of the other three of us, I can't remember, you can see Pete Willis, which we actually thought was kind of cool because he is on the record. So it's an acknowledgement of Pete's contribution, which, let's say here right now, was immense. And even Phil would say, he'd heard the multi-tracks. Pete's rhythm playing on Pyromania is astonishing. It's really, really good. And is a big part of that record. But unfortunately, his personality, as it was at the time, was not a big part of where we wanted to be. And Phil, obviously, through the fact that he's still here, 40 years later, 42 years later, is obvious he was the right guy for the job, especially with the way that the songs went this year onwards, because we'd really went much more in a pop rock direction. But yeah, the back was just like, you wouldn't do it now as an established band. You wouldn't go, oh, this is a really good. It's like, no, it was like, shit, Phil, give us a live shot. But I mean, Girl, it doesn't matter. You're live. It'll have to do. Sabs he liked, I don't think we were using Ross much at the time. He didn't like the Robert Ellis shots, or he didn't like the Ross shots. And he just liked this one that this fan had taken. So that's the one that got used on the back of the sleeve. So each photo gets in its individual credit. And in the background of one of us, I can't remember which one, there's Pete Willis hovering around. It was a bit of a mishmash, that back bit, but the front was thought of. That was thought out. That was Andy Airfix's explosive idea. Obviously, let's not hide behind the fact that it is alarmingly like 9/11. And that did strike us. When that happened, we actually discussed, should we like change the sleeve? But we realized that, it's a piece of history and it's not our doing, and it's just an insanely awful coincidence. So, if we were to change every bit of art that foresaw a terrible situation like that, we'd be changing a lot of art. You know what I mean? So, rewriting history is something that everybody's trying to do in with language these days, but I don't think there's any point doing it with the live stuff, with visuals. Sorry, because it is what it is. It wasn't intended to represent anything that would happen in the future. It was just explosive pyromania, bang, boom, fire.